Welcome back to the Nullified Tech channel here on YouTube, where we've got the TNT takes for you on the Challenge World Championship Episode 4. That's right, I'm back with my ride or die, the mercenary I brought in for this season, BK himself, Kahuna. How you doing, Kahuna?
Very good. So the MVP to your legend, of course, as we team up for the
Jeez, high
podcast.
praise. I feel like I'm maybe like Nelly T in this legend category. I don't know if the challenge fandom would agree that I'm necessarily a legend, but I'll take all the gaslighting you can give me on the podcast, Kahuna.
Oh, we get plenty of that on the show all the time anyway, so we might as well bring it to the podcast as well, I guess.
100%, man. So this is the second podcast that we're pre-recording for those that are watching this at a later stage. Again, my schedule has not worked out in a way where I can sadly do this one live, but I'm sure there will be an opportunity for myself and Kahuna to do a live with the audience. We love doing it. We love hearing from you. So still be sure to leave a comment afterwards. Let us know what you thought of the episode yourself. Why do you agree or disagree with some of the takes that we have? We love to read and take all of that in after the show has finished and after you've seen it. So please be sure to let us know. And for those that are listening on an audio platforms such as Spotify, Google Podcasts, Amazon Podcasts. This latest one, we've just joined Amazon Podcast as well, which I'm excited about. Please be sure to rate it on those platforms as well. Give us a rating. Hopefully you enjoyed enough that you give us a full 5 stars rating. Those kind of things do help as well with getting us recognized in the algorithm. So, but without further ado, let's get into this episode here. This felt, Kahuna, very much more like a traditional challenge episode because we had a beginning and a ending at the end of this episode where we saw someone actually go home. And I've got to say, I much prefer this type of editing compared to what we saw in the previous episode. I wasn't as low on the previous couple of episodes as you were, especially the previous one, but it did feel a little bit more familiar to me watching this episode.
Yeah, back to the classic template, if you will, of making sure we have a daily and an elimination in a closed episode without a cliffhanger. With that resolution, we know what to expect from the next episode as opposed to going into another elimination that we should have had last week. So back to that same format, really good. It was a little bit snappier, was a little bit faster, but I think it was because there wasn't really that much content as far as the way discussions were going or strategy or whatever the case may be. I'm not sure how much was there. They had to put a little bit of fillers in here and there and build it out a lot. But we got that format that we like, and it was done and dusted for an episode, and we got to see a bit going on. Some people going missing again this edit, but some people very, very spotlighted and having a bit of shine as well.
Yeah, listen, if you're a big Australian challenge fan, you'd probably be pretty pissed off about the fact that someone like Troy isn't getting all that much airtime as of yet. He is the champion for the Challenge Australia coming into this season. He did get a little bit of content, but it was more so focusing around Wes and Wes going in there and talking business and, how many Ferraris he's got back home and how good he is at business. And what Wes may not know, because he's saying that all these guys are big fanboys. I think Troy is not the kind of fanboy that's out there to be a spectator. I think he wants to take the crown from Wes. And he's a smart enough guy, I think, to be able to go to the end and do extremely well. I had a chat with Connor Curran from the Challenge Australia, which is yet to be released on the channel, where he also spoke about how big of a fan Troy is of the show. Troy has seen all the Challenge seasons.
Yeah, I mean, Troy, like, I love that. That was such a great scene, by the way. Wes just being Wes and talking himself up again. And Troy, he is a fan. He knows who Wes is. But Grant, on the other hand, I think, like, Grant even said, "Oh, this ginger-bearded bloke," and I think his surname is most appropriate because Grant was not buying his crap. Grant did not give a crap about Wes. He's like,
Yeah.
whatever. Well, I think that's funny as well. I don't know if that's like. Do you think Wes was doing that from a strategic? Was he relationship building, or was he just talking to two dudes who they're in the house together? You know what I mean? Like, is he on 24/7? Or is he being Wes outside of the house where he naturally does talk himself up a lot and just sort of ignore his accomplishments,
I think it's the latter. I really think Wes is one of those guys. Whenever you're at a party, he's going to talk about business. He's going to talk about the big sales that he made. You know, the new Lambo that's sitting in the garage at home. He's that kind of guy, and that's why we love Wes so much. Whenever he goes on the show, because he is going to give you great entertainment. I also think Wes knows what the producers want to see from him. Like he's falling back into these old ways, and you know, it's kind of funny because you've got Bananas and Casey sitting back on the side, and they're like, West never learns. It never works for him. Everybody is now seen, you know, the jig is up. And it's funny because he does have 3 championships to his name, you know, doing this strategy. Why would he change it at this stage if it's working for him to a certain degree? Obviously, it's being highlighted that they know he's a big player in the game. But I mean, West was coming on with a massive target on his back in any case. So he may as well live it up, play it up, give the producers what they want if he's going to be there only for a short period. We don't know if it's going to be a short period. He may still defy all odds and still get to the end of this game.
I mean, he's got a partner that could certainly help him get there with a daily win this episode. But I wonder if, like, I just think it's funny seeing that contrasted against that he happened to pick the 2 Aussies in the house to have that conversation with, because I've mentioned before on your podcast before about Australians have a big thing called tall poppy syndrome, where we don't really abide by the bombastic, self-aggrandizing thing in Australia. It's seen as like sort of uncouth. Like it's not good to talk yourself up. It's better to be humble, if you will, and be like, we have a saying in Australia called the Aussie battler. And that's something like you want to be that guy that just works hard and does his thing and doesn't complain and isn't going to big note himself. He just does what he does, and he's a good bloke. You know what I mean? That kind of stereotypical thing. And Wes taking that approach, whether from a social or strategic thing, just the complete wrong audience for that kind of, you know, like it would have just been like, especially Grant being like from the country, and he just does not like, I think Australians have a thing amongst Australians being city slickers versus country, like everywhere in the world, right? But when you have someone like Wes, who's American, who's wealthy, who's a celebrity, who's doing all these things, and he's also talking himself up, it just comes off as so much in your face when you're talking to 2 blokes who are very, very sort of down low, like Troy and Grant, I think. But interesting choice anyway.
Yeah, no, you bring up valid points. I think that, you know, as probably the only international podcast that covers the challenge, I haven't seen another one. I think most of them are over in the US or Canada. In any case, I think we can appreciate that there is cultural differences coming from these international contestants going out there and playing the game. Like, for instance, you know, I've lived in New Zealand for a long time, and in New Zealand, the tall poppy syndrome is definitely a thing as well. And New Zealand and Australia is very close to each other culturally when it comes to that. Being originally from South Africa, we operate a lot more like Americans. Like, we actually do talk ourselves up a bit. You know, we've got that little bit of an extra spring in our step, where when I first came to New Zealand, people thought I was arrogant, and I had to like learn to sort of, you know, change a little bit my personality or how I would approach certain situations. Because to me, it was just, I'm confident. And I think a lot of South Africans, when they move abroad, they don't realize they come across that way. And I think West probably doesn't realize that he may have come across that way to the 2 Aussie blokes that he was talking to in this very moment, and one of them being a great fan of the show, who have already seen him, you know, I guess, manipulate new players in the game. And it did take me back to the interview that I had with Troy back when he won the Challenge Australia, and I asked him, who would you like to see out there and who wouldn't you like to see out there? And the person he said he wouldn't like to see out there was Wes. So it kind of made me think back, well, he just came back from playing the Challenge World Championship. When he said that, he probably brought that up for a reason, or it could have just been the fact that, you know, he was out there or he had this high view of Wes as a game player and he didn't want to go head to head with him. But it was really interesting to see. Staying on the topic of the cultural differences and seeing these different legends and MVPs connect out on the show, we also get a very wholesome scene with Rodrigo and Tori, and he's teaching her how to dance. I think it was the salsa. I'm not too sure which dance it was.
Right.
My sister will kill me because she's a ballroom dancer. I should know this. And we also have Naya and Jordan sort of observing this and having a conversation. I thought it was a great moment for Rodrigo, at least to try and connect, because clearly English being his second language, he's really, I think, struggling at this point to make those valuable connections. And Argentina have just been on a downward spiral, I think, due to this.
They really are a couple of steps behind just from the get-go. Like, behind the eight ball is the phrase, and it applies to Argentina so much. Communication wise is key in a game where you're strategizing, not only like in the actual challenges where you need to communicate with a literal partner. There's no solo challenges, right? It's all has to be together, and usually requires both of you exerting effort towards a similar objective, right? You can't, very rarely is there a challenge where you're doing two separate things. It's usually together. And then you've got the aspect of the politicking, the voting out, strategizing. They really had no shot. And Rodrigo, I think, I don't know if that's in their nature anyway. Like, what we've seen of them so far, they're so very energetic and vivacious and great fun, but we haven't seen a lot of them, even amongst themselves, really talking up, what do we do here? Like, how do we, it's more about just trying to survive because they know they're kind of on the outs. But Rodrigo, great guy, and he seems to have made an impact on a lot of the people there, that they seem to love him. Like I said, the Argentinian bananas, he's like 50 or something. He's in his 40s, the gray silver fox. But I mean, he was jacked as well when he's like cut. He's like the whole lot. So, and he won as well his Argentinian season, right? Didn't he?
No, I think the winner isn't there. It was I think
that's right. There's only
woman.
one.
I think it was
woman winner.
It was a
Yeah,
female winner. I do think. People
Right.
can correct us in the comments, but I don't think that the winner is actually on the show, which was another really strange thing when we saw that they chose other people to come out and represent Argentina. But maybe it was just due
I
to
remembered that,
scheduling.
yep.
I heard some of the Argentinian contestants were famous in their own right, so it might be that that person had a conflict in their own schedule of what they potentially had to do.
Now that you mention, I heard some more info on as to what happened with the casting choices. There was, because there was such a quick turnaround. Argentina finished filming 10 days before World Championships started filming.
Wow.
So the changeover there was very tight, and I think the winner herself was going to go, but there was something along the lines of, it was literally like the changeover was like over a weekend or something, where she had to get, because it's in South Africa, a specific vaccine or booster or something. And the medical places where it was in Argentina, I think their season
Yes.
Was literally closed. She could not get a shot, and therefore could not go to South Africa for whatever.
That is
that was literally
horrible
it.
planning. That is horrible planning
I
by.
was like, wow. So
I should not be shocked.
Rodrigo and that, I think they ended up coming. So one of them didn't even make the finals. A couple of them got to the finals, but got out earlier.
Two of them, I think, didn't. I think two of them
so they
didn't.
had longer time frame to.
Yeah, I think Hui and also Benya did not make the final in Argentina. So, yeah, it's interesting you bring that up. Such bad planning by the not by the Argentinians, but specifically by the challenge production team, because we know that they were the real, I guess, entity that put the whole thing together behind the scenes. And that much is even confirmed, I think, by Connor when we do our exit interview, because I asked him the question, I'm like, listen, how much did Channel 10 actually have to do with this, and how much was the production team for MTV? And it's predominantly them doing it, with Channel 10 apparently giving them a few tips in regards to what would work for the Australian audience. And we know how well that went. I think Channel 10 got it completely wrong, and maybe the MTV should have just done what they would normally do themselves and, bring the people on there that they thought would translate really well to the audience. But anyways, moving on from that, I did want to talk about the Naya scene as well. We had this scene with Naya. She's obviously been in our screens for a very long time. For those people that are OG Challenge fans, they've seen Naya grow up in front of their very own eyes, from being this young girl that got into fights and, having a very strong personality. She still has that, but she's toned down a little bit more. She's a bit more mature. And she, I think, is channeling her energy when it comes to fighting out in the arena and things like that a lot better, especially when you had a look at her previous All-Star season where she did a lot better. But this whole story about her being in such a bad space, like physically with her health and with vaping, what a shock, to hear that and just to see what she went through, because, not that long ago, a lot of people thought vaping was better than smoking.
Yeah, crazy. Like, and to say, I've never heard anyone say I'm addicted to vaping, and she nearly died. She's literally nearly died, and it's crazy to think, like, She was actually on the Official Challenge podcast, not to promote competition or whatever, but she made
Nah,
a
go
really
ahead. I don't
interesting.
listen. I'm sure anybody that comes here to listen to us already know about the Official Challenge podcast.
Yeah, yeah. Well, she made a really interesting point. She said, um, she's now she started on the real world when she's 23, and she's now in her 30s, but she still hasn't got really good medical insurance, being American, like who does? Um, and she said, like,
Jeez.
yeah, like being in the hospital in Italy for her thing was really difficult for her. And I'm bringing this up as a slight off ramp. I just found it a really fascinating point. Was that she said that when she goes into challenges, sometimes it's difficult to know. Like they were talking about the daily throwing herself at things, knowing that she was in hospital and what it meant to her financially and stuff, and that any tooth broken, any leg broken, any sprains and stuff, without the full medical insurance, it
Yeah.
plays on her mind when she's going into these things. And I'm just thinking like how an experience like that not only strengthened her and she was able to overcome her addiction to vaping, but how much of it still plays as a little bit of, a remnant of PTSD of, oh no, what if this happens again? Or what if I get hurt again? Or what if injury? Or what if financially? And I just found that a really interesting insight into what goes through their mind doing a show like this.
Yeah, it's crazy. You'd think that they'd have some sort of medical insurance or insurance for the players and contestants that are going out there because it's not like the challenge does the safest dailies out there. Like, I think the challenge takes more risks compared to a lot of other shows, a lot of other competitive reality TV shows that we see on our TV screen. So it's crazy to think that she still has to think about that. And we also know that she's someone that gets in her own head. She's someone that doubts herself a lot. And I think that probably also holds her back because I definitely saw her not going as hard on the daily as you'd like to see a competitor try out there. But this scene between her and Jordan was a great one. We know they've got a great friendship. I love continuing to see that Jordan is very supportive of her and that this friendship is continuing to blossom because both of them have come a long way. I think a couple of years ago, if we asked people if they would ever be able to shout for Jordan to potentially win a season, they'd say, hell no. There was a lot of people who really despised him as a human being because of the stuff that he did on reality TV a few years ago. But I think this shows
Including
you,
with Naya.
including with Naya, and this is what I was going to
Yeah.
say. I think this shows you that when given an opportunity for people to grow, when educating them and then giving them a chance, people can change. And that's why sometimes you shouldn't completely count somebody out unless they continue to show you in their behavior that they're never going to change who they are as a human being. That's fair. Then cancel, or I actually hate the word cancel, but then take away opportunities from the person, right? But I think that
Hmm.
this shows Jordan is a great example, and also Naya, because they both, I think, did things to each other. Not that I'm saying one was worse than the other, but to see this growth between them is still, I think, one of my favorite challenge storylines.
Yeah, it's remarkable to see the growth in both of them, and the fact that we get to see it on TV over like a decade. That they've literally grown up on TV, and that's such a hard thing to overcome. And not only be in the spotlight with a camera in your face 24/7 for periods of time. It's not all year round, but for that period of time, you're in a fishbowl, literally. And not only do they keep coming back to that fishbowl, but they've grown in that fishbowl and actually matured to a point where they're now having these conversations where, yeah, you're right. A few years ago, you wouldn't have even thought that they'd be friends, let alone being able to talk the way they are. So it's great to
Yeah.
see.
Love to see it. Two more scenes I wanted to talk about before we get into the daily challenge. One of them was right at the beginning of the episode with Ben having a conversation with Janae. Interesting to continue to see Ben really socialize because in the previous episode, he was talking to Kellyanne. So he's like the medium person, the middle person that's hearing both sides of the argument out, why there's hurt feelings. I think he's playing that social game really well, and we're kind of seeing why Ben did have a good social game in Survivor until he didn't, and he had to find idols to get to the end. I think he was at one point seen as the biggest threat to win the game because he was the leader of his alliance in the game. And I think we're seeing a little bit of that play out here on the show. And then there's that very awkward scene with Kellyanne walking in, not being happy. She then walks away again, and we see Tristan talking about the fact that he now is going to continue to struggle because he feels like she should be his mentor in the game. And at the moment, he's got to be the mature one, and he's got to calm Kellyanne down.
Yeah, I mean that was a bit weird. Like complaining about the legend label isn't working for as a veteran of it. Like, is the dude not a champion? Supposed to be the champion? Like like
Yeah,
stand up for
she's never
yourself.
won. She's
Yeah,
never won. He's actually
exactly.
won one. So
So he could teach her how to win. Like she's gotten close, I guess, in All Stars too. But yeah, like he's like I get it. Like you get to be paired with a legend, especially if you're a fan. I don't know Tristan's like backstory as to
mm.
whether he likes the show or whatever. But if you're a fan and you get to be paired with the legends, that would be great. And I'm sure disappointing to have it not live up to the expectation. But I don't know if he should have had that expectation going into a partnership with Kellyanne. Like it doesn't.
She was the last one for a reason. Like
Yeah,
they didn't
exactly.
kind of
Right.
choose each other. They just ended up together. And I also just want to say it was All Stars 1 because people are going to put that down in the comments and call you out on it. But they kind of all blurred together after a while if you haven't seen them for a while. But I agree with you. It's an interesting dynamic between those two. One that I think is going to continue to struggle throughout the season, and the storyline very much tells us that this is a dysfunctional team. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see them back in the arena in the very next episode. I don't think this is a team that's going to go the distance in any case. The other conversation or scene that we saw was between Darrell and Jody. They're having a bit of a conversation, and Jody has asked if she's spoken to Benja about what they need to do strategically, and she doesn't even know where the hell he is, and he's out meditating. Yeah. For those that are listening to the audio version, Kahuna is also now going into the full meditation pose and thinking about, what Benja is doing out on the challenge. He's an interesting cat. I think I like him as a person, but man, oh man, like you said earlier, probably out of his depth at this point, doesn't really know where to start in the game. And we know that it's not going to end very well for them by the end of this episode.
Well, I mean, last episode he got through not getting thrown in because he said the game would not do that to me. Um, so I don't know if he was relying on the game and the gods of the challenge gods to bless him again this episode. But he's great. He's a fun character. He's got like this South American Johnny Depp thing going on, but super goofy, super fun. But he's not gonna. I think if he comes back on, he'll be one of those guys that Jody would replicate that face. Or no one would want to be partnered because, as fun as he may be, you just know you're not going to go very far in the season, I think.
All right, so we get into the daily. This is where things get a little bit exciting. We get to see Bryony back on the challenge, and I was a bit shocked. I was a bit shocked when I saw Bryony out there. I just had a conversation about them with Connor, and we spoke about the fact that they were really good in that season, and go and listen to the interview when that drops. And I'm so happy that they get another opportunity to go out and do the whole hosting part of the challenge. But at this point, we weren't aware that at some point during the whole episode, they took over completely from TJ and actually hosted the end part of this in the elimination. How much of a shock was that to you?
I mean, with very good reason, by the way. Congratulations to the Hall of Famer, Mr. TJ. So, with good reason, but I loved it. I said last week, bring back Bryony. Like, where are the other hosts? And we got to see a chance for Bryony to showcase what they can do. And I think they killed it. Like, they're just a very natural host. I think they were a little bit more tamed on the than what we got on the Australian version. I think 100%. They could be a little bit more themselves and play more with the challenges and stuff. This one was a little bit more stick to the script, but I think they killed it. They did a very good job and like very natural. In the daily, a bit of back and forth and joking with TJ about how fast Zara was and like that sort of thing. So it was good, and he actually introduced them as my co-host. Bryony Dawson, which I thought was interesting. Co-host was doing a lot of heavy lifting there. This is the first and only time we see them back. So
I think that this is very positive for Australian challenge potential. If they're giving Bryony a chance to go out there and continue to be the person, I mean, they could have chosen the UK guy to come over and do this, but they chose Bryony to fill in. Unless we see the UK guy at some point come in as well, I think that this could be very positive. Maybe they think, let's give the Challenge Australia one more chance. Let's get more Survivor players on there. Let's try a different angle compared to what we did previously. And I really hope that Bryony does get that opportunity to continue to host either the Challenge Australia or another show at some point, because I really love the energy that they bring to the show. And I think that they're, like you said, a natural host. But the daily challenge itself is quite an interesting one. It's called Gates of Hell. And
Gates of Hell.
we just needed like real good sound effects afterwards. But the podcast isn't that advanced yet. But you definitely had the ad lib, or the, what do you call it? completely on point. But the Gates of Hell is really interesting because you see them having to run from one gate to the other gate before it closes. I am somebody that has done a lot of sports in my life. I used to enjoy doing rugby and all that. And we used to have something called the beep test, which you would run up and down, and it would be like literally you have to beat the beep to get to the other side. And it gets like faster and faster the further you go into it. And I think I think there's like 20 levels, and if you were like at level 12 to 14, you're basically Super Rugby Division 1, for those that are in America, fit. You've got that fitness level. And it reminded me of this fitness test, but with an actual gate closing on them that they couldn't get through.
Yeah, that's great. That's what I thought of. This is like extreme beep test. Like, but yeah, it was such a cool thing. Like it started with, you get the slow-mo run away from the fence. Like you have to get them all running towards it, and then they all crash in and they're pushing for space. And I see Bananas, who is consistently one of the people that can gamify the challenges and tries to look for loopholes and edges and that sort of thing. And when he got to the fence first, like he's pushing back and like creating lots of space behind him and not letting himself get crushed and that sort of. It was just a really fascinating visual challenge. Like when you said yesterday, I was like, the challenges are actually really good. I don't like the way it kind of executed. Like it went from 13 to 3 teams. Like the first run, first run, no one got out. It was obviously a little bit too slow. And then they just went way too fast and knocked out, 3/4 of the. I think if you could have done it, maybe the last 2 teams each time, or I'm not sure how it would work better, but it was very quick. But for that moment we got it, I sat there super like smiling. I was like, this is like hall brawl with 30 people all running it, like it's crushing them. I thought Jody was going to die. And then when like Wes ended up winning after doing a cartwheel on his head, he got stuck halfway through the thing. So there's mayhem all over, and I loved it. I think it could have been a little bit, tweaked for future, but what a great idea and what a great concept and a great visual for TV.
I like the fact that, as they continued on, like when West won, there was literally only like enough space for 1 or 2 people maybe to squeeze through the gate, because they actually also closed the gate horizontally. So you couldn't just get in anywhere you wanted to. And going into that round where Wes had to go up against Danny and Tori, all my money would have been on Danny and Tori to win that. I was shocked. And I was extremely impressed by Zara and the way that she nearly held back Tori from getting in on that second last gate, because she ran back kind of physically, because I was thinking from the start, you could just get people physically blocking other people from going there. She was holding Tori back, and we know Tori is very physical, but the speed on that girl to get from the back end into the gate on the other end, to make it, and then also obviously hats off for Tori to get there. I was very impressed by her. I think she is holding her own this season coming in, and she's got something to prove.
For TJ to like exclaim about how fast you are and then leave it in the edit and it makes the edit, she's got to be quick. Like she's got to be really, really hauling up and down, I think. I did hear an interesting thing that apparently Danny was a bit unhappy with the results of this. Because he said
wouldn't
that
be the first time that
know
Danny's not happy about something that happens out on a reality TV show.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. Like, because apparently the rules were like both players from the team has to make it through, otherwise the team is eliminated. And then we hear this in case of a stalemate, will be the first person that gets to the wall or something like that. But that last bit about the stalemate was very, very clearly ADR. It was put in post that TJ always has to do. That it wasn't on the day; it was actually added in editing. And Danny said they weren't aware of that as a rule at all. So the fact that...
Do you think that production tried to protect their legends again here by getting West to win because they knew West would keep the legends safe?
No, I just think like I think they saw that. I don't know. I think they need to work on their What do you call that team that works on the Survivor challenges?
Their dream team.
The dream team. They need a better dream team on this. I just
They don't
think
have
that
one, from my understanding.
yeah, I just think that they didn't work out the timings properly and couldn't get it. And they got to the point, it was like, well, this is going to be like kind of garbage if it keeps like either they're all going to make it or no one's going to make it because we can't get the timing to fall
Mm,
in between. You know what I mean? Like it's a very specific thing. When people are running full pellet as fast as they can, and you're talking about people as fast as an NFL football player, and West, by all accounts, is a very good athlete in his own right. Like, what are we talking? Tenths of a second, like micro tenth, like to get a gate closing fast enough to actually be effective, but slow enough that it doesn't kill these people. Like it's such a delicate balance. So I can see why they chose to then say no, the first person there or mostly there or under wins, kind of thing. Because how do
yeah.
you get a
I
succinct,
just
satisfactory end?
I just get really annoyed by every single season that I've covered of the challenge, right? There's always people complaining about the challenges. Oh, that wasn't fair. Or production twisted it for this player or for this one because they wanted them to get deeper in the game. I don't like the fact that there's always questions around daily challenges every single time. It takes away from me personally from the enjoyment because I would like to believe that every daily challenge is fair. It's clearly explained to every one of these players so that we can see a fair competition take place personally. But one thing I will say that I really appreciate about the challenge is that we're well over probably 40 seasons now if you look at all the offshoot seasons that have shown as well with this production team, and yet they still innovate every single daily
Mm-hmm.
challenge. You're like, I've never seen this challenge before. How cool is that? When I look at Survivor, it shows that Survivor is, and I'm the biggest Survivor fan. You see the buffs there in the background. That's my show.
Yep.
That's who I rep for. But when it comes to the challenge and Survivor taking risks and taking the right kind of risks, not game breaking twists, wacky, goofy carnival trick type of twists, but making the challenges more interesting. Well, I guess it's in the name, the challenge. They take pride in that, right? But they still
Mm-hmm.
bring great daily challenges, new stuff. They're consistently innovating what they're doing. And I think the next daily, from what I saw in the preview, with them being on this circle thing where they have to go around and catch things, that looks new as well. So, yes, they take risks. Do they get it right? No, maybe sometimes they don't think some of these things through. But production, please, please continue to do what you do. I love the fact that you continue to innovate on the show.
Yeah, it's big swings and misses, and you do get your misses, but sometimes when it connects, they hit it out of the park, and like you're gonna get that because they are taking those risks, and with great risk comes great reward, and you know that risk to reward ratio, they're constantly on the edge of it, very much like a lot of the challenges would be in their gameplay as well. Bun and Murray, the production company, seems to do it a little bit with the show itself and plays it a bit fast and loose sometimes.
There's no way that a new challenger can go onto the challenge 3D printing the challenge puzzles before they go out there because the challenge no season is the same. They continue to bring new things in there. So it's not like Survivor in that sense where you can have the obstacle courses at home to train for it. I don't think.
Well,
Troy might
unless you have
disagree.
like, yeah, well, unless you've got 6 excavators in your backyard to do the swinging thing that we're going to see next week. Maybe if you're working for a construction company on your lunch break or something like that. But yeah, like
Jeez.
even today, like I mean, the gates of hell. How do you practice that? I guess maybe
Yeah.
beep
Beep
tests,
test.
right?
Yeah,
But
it's all I
yeah,
can think of. It's all I can
yeah.
think of.
So
But yeah, I guess moving on to the next portion, which is them going back to the house. Wes and Zara now won. And we know Wes was potentially someone they would have liked to have targeted early on as a big player. His name got raised by the likes of Danny, Sarah, and Ben and the Australian alliance that they've got as a big player. They now still have Jordan in their sights. And we see this alliance between the MVPs of Australia and the USA continue to strengthen at this point. They're wanting to go after Jordan. What did you think of the whole fact that the MVPs wanted to play, but Tory and the Legends seem to hold them back from doing so?
um, it's a very. I mentioned this last week, and I feel like it's going to continue to be an issue. Is the the blurring of the lines and the ambiguity of whether it's country team based, Team USA, or if it's partner based. Because really, like the way Danny's going on about like wanting to take out a Jordan and Wes, maybe Wes is a different story, right? But wanting to take out a Jordan who has a connection with Tori, Danny should be recognizing that if she's got a partnership there that's not going to throw her in, then that's better for my game. But in his head, I think he's like, he's UK, I'm USA, I have to get him out. And as I said, it makes it that little bit more difficult because Bananas is in that legend group, but he's also with Justine, right? So it's like, how do
I
you
didn't read it like you. I
differentiate?
didn't read it. I didn't read it
No.
like that. I could be wrong as well, but I think Danny looked at it this way. He was looking at Jordan as a, what is it, 3 or 4 time champion now. Someone that gets to the end normally wins. He's extremely good in eliminations. Thinking he's a male counterpart that I might have to go up against at some point in an arena. So I'd rather throw him in when I'm not in danger of going in, and I'd rather get rid of someone that could win the game. And then he doesn't need Jordan as a number. Tori's attached to him. Jordan's not talking to him. Him and Jordan don't have that friendship, but Jordan's got a hell of a bigger connection with the other legends who he also wants to go against, which is Bananas and Wes, where Danny has his boy Ben, and he has got Grant in his pocket now and probably wants to play with Troy as well. So he's looking at those newbie numbers coming in saying, one of us, the new school players, want to take this game by the scruff. And I personally applaud Danny for wanting to make this move. I think it's the right move. If, at some point, right, in this game, you're going to have to take Jordan out. When do you take him out? You don't want to run against Jordan in a final. The only reason Jordan didn't do well last season was because he was attached to Anissa.
Yeah, that's very true. And you don't want Jordan at the end. But what about this then, right? So far, we had Nelly T go up against Tristan and Kellyanne, Nelly T and Hui. We had now Rodrigo and Naya go up against Jody and Benya. You throw Jordan in, who's coming back? Who's
There's
coming
a good
back?
chance Jordan's. Yeah, it's a good chance Jordan's coming back.
Right? Unlike Survivor, where once you vote someone out, I mean, unless something, if you're in Australian Survivor, maybe there's a non-lim. If you're married, like depends on Redemption, Rock, and Islands, and Extinction, like all the stuff they have. But they're gone. Usually they're gone. Jordan is coming back in the first 2, 3, maybe 4 eliminations where the competition is very soft at the start. Like in eliminations, like he
That's a
beats,
good point.
Yeah, like he's coming back against a Nelly T, against a Tristan, against a Benya, against a Rodrigo. He's coming back. So do you throw him in now, and then all of a sudden when he comes back, because 95%, he's coming back, and he's paired with Kaz. It's not like, they were the top 2, right? He was the second pick. She was second in the females. It's not like he was picked by someone right at the bottom. They are a strong team, and they are coming back. And then all of a sudden now he's come back with this big alliance that you say is going to be there. And now all of a sudden they're focused on you, Danny. So I don't know if it was the right move to do now. It's 100% going to be soon, but the competition is very soft. It's very, very soft for him.
You've got a good point. If you want to go after Jordan, you got to throw him in against Wes, or you got to throw him in against Bananas or Darrell, somebody that is at that level that you're like, okay, it could go either way here when they get into an elimination. And maybe you're right. Tori did him a favor by withholding that move and saying, listen, let's not go there right now. But I think that this does set up a storyline that at some point, Danny will either go head to head with Jordan in the game, or he's going to try and take him out because he wants to be Tori's number 1 in the game. And currently he's not, but in reality, unless they change the formation up of these partnerships, Tori and him are one person in the game, like you said. Yeah. So it should be about how do you get deep in the game? It's not about being Tori's number 1. You're already one unit.
She can't vote you in.
Exactly. Yeah. She can't vote him in. So it's going to be interesting. And I think that, what's going to be interesting is when the MVPs win again and get into power, like they were saying after this. Sarah and Danny has a conversation about, well, we didn't get him this time, but next time if we get in power and we have the decision making of who goes in the final, maybe they pull the trigger at that stage in the game, and they say we'll throw 2 big people in against each other and it doesn't matter who's going to go in there. But again, these legends are not getting last. I don't see any of these legends really coming in last at this point. I don't think Darrell's got Kiki. He's not going to finish last in a daily anytime soon with Kiki as his team member because she's solid. Bananas has got Justine, who's very good. Who does Jordan have? He has Kaz, who's the champion for the UK and who's really good. So I actually feel like these legend guys are so well insulated and have got solid partners that they're not going anywhere anytime soon. The most likely people that are going to be in danger when the Argentinians are all out of the game will be the newbie guys, will be your Bens, potentially your Troys, of this world, and your Grants. Those are going to be the people who are going to get targeted first.
Yeah, especially considering Troy's with oh my god,
Amber.
what's her name?
Amber.
Amber. There's a YouTuber that I like. Her name is Andrea Botes, right? And the Amber, but I always get it like the AB thing mixed up in my head. Anyway, Amber doesn't have the connections with the legends that some of the others do. So Troy could definitely be, in danger as far as in that inner core, in that inner circle. You're right. It's going to be the outside people that slowly get picked off and whittled away.
Yeah. Another really funny scene here is where Bananas has this conversation with Danny at the party, and Danny just doesn't want to have a bar of it. Like, he doesn't trust Bananas. It's funny seeing these legends go into the spiel that they would normally do, and the newbies being off a different class. These are not the rookies, the layup rookies that MTV gives them every year. These are game players in their own right, and they've been successful on other shows, and they're coming in here saying, we know how to play reality TV games. We maybe haven't played this one, but we're sure as hell's not going to fall in line and just do whatever the legends wanted to do in this game. And I'm really enjoying that. I want to have more of this. Can we have more high quality MVPs, rookies, and can we have more of a 50-50 balance in the future so that we can get this, like seeing Banana sweat a little bit is going to be entertaining this season.
Are you saying that like someone like Danny being, a mature man in his 30s, like an NFL player, professional,
very accomplished,
already won, all this sort of thing, you wouldn't think he's on the same level as a Gabbo or what was the name of the Romanian vampire dude? I'm blanking on these names. Emmanuel. So you're saying they're not the same type of person and competitor? I do like this as well. And I like that. What did you think of Banana's pitch? Because he was doing this is my interpretation of it, and I could be off here, but he was doing we're actually on the same side here. We're working together, Team USA and all that.
Yeah.
But I got it on the same side here, man. Don't come at the legends. Warning, warning, warning. Being, hey, I'm saying it friendly, but underneath that, this is a warning, mate. Like, we're having a message right now. We're meant to be working together. Don't backstab that. And I that was the underpinning thing that I got. I thought that was a really interesting approach. So he can say that he's playing it nice, but I got a little bit more venom under the surface for me.
Yeah, no, I see it. I mean, Bananas is kind of the godfather figure of the challenge, and I can kind of see him coming in with that angle, but clearly Danny didn't take well to it. It was funny seeing the party scene, which we spoke about last week, saying, do we still need the party scene with a lot of these people really not being that into it? And then Kellyanne just coming out there saying it's kind of like going to that event for your cousin and nobody really likes each other, but you're just faking it. And I think that's why, a lot of the fans that love the challenge, they're like, no. Even afterwards, I had Chris in my comments. She's one of our listeners that's part of the fandom, the challenge fandom community that Chantal, Drew, and I have here on YouTube. And she said to me, I'm coming back just to let you know we need the party scenes on the challenge, Chris. You can't say we don't need that on the show. But I think that if we do have the party scenes, we need younger people. We should go back to having people in their 20s, early 20s. And it would be a hell of a lot more fun to watch than people that are like mature and nearly 40. A lot of them are married and taken. And it just does not hit the same for me, Kahuna, at the moment like it used to.
The only good thing about this party night scene was that it only went for about a minute, 40 seconds. There wasn't a lot to it because you're not getting the same party shots. And it hasn't really been the same since COVID, to be honest.
I said Kellyanne. It was Kiki who said that whole thing about the cousin. Yeah.
Since COVID, and they've had to have private bars the party never really. I mean, one of them they were doing it in the backyard, right? They had the dome set up in the backyard, and then other times they hire out
The
the
best, the
whole
best,
bar.
the one with the dome. The best scene of the one with the dome was when CT and Fessy went at it, and Fessy was coming after CT, and CT is let's roll, and he just did not know what beehive he was kicking into when he
And
went after
CT won
CT.
that
That was
season.
100%.
CT won,
CT,
yeah.
yeah. CT's been in phenomenal form in recent. Like, I know we're off topic, but how devastating is it not to have CT out there this season? Like, if CT was out there, this would have been the perfect season. Like, you would not have a more heavy hitting cast than having him out there as well.
He's really the only down the line, like we said originally, Theo legend status maybe not really in that, but certainly physically and capability wise, he's right up there. You take out Nelly and put in CT, that now becomes a near perfect cast of legends anyway. I think so. CT
I think
not
so.
being there is an absolute shame, but I'm pretty sure he's going to be back. I'm pretty sure
He'll be back.
He's got a lot to pay for now. He's
Yeah.
paying half.
Yeah.
He's going to make more money going forward, I think.
Well, remember the kids off the diapers now. You know, he used to go there for diaper money, but the diaper money is no longer needed because he's not in
They
diapers
get more
anymore.
expensive. They get more expensive, man. The diaper money's nothing. Trust me.
CT is coming back for an all winners season, all champions season at some point. Season 40. That's what I'm putting
I think that's what
bet
they
on.
wanted to do here. I think that was initially the plan, but they couldn't get, like, if you look on the legends, most of them are winners.
Yeah.
But when it came to the MVPs and stuff, you've only got one season. You can't have all winners, right? But I do think
Yeah.
that's what they were aiming for in the legends. But
Well, shame on them for not bringing. Shame on them for not bringing the most elite female challenger of all time out there, Cara Maria.
I was going, where's he going with this? Cara Maria, Laurel. Laurel could have been there,
Laurel's
I think.
pretty
Laurel
good
would
as
have been
well.
good
Like,
there.
I know some people would say Laurel, but I'm a Cara Maria stan. So, you know,
Cara
like,
Maria
why
should have
not out
definitely been there.
We're completely off topic here. Going back to this episode, we do see them going and doing the nominations. Obviously, it becomes pretty straightforward. I almost said boring, but pretty straightforward on who's going to go in there. They throw, you know, the two people that already are at the bottom back down there, which is Kellyanne and Tristan, and they are potentially going in there with the likes of Jody and also Benya. And Wes had a decision to make. For a second, he kind of played it up like, oh, you know, I could use Naya's comment as a reason to do this whole dirty move against Kellyanne. But you and I both knew he wasn't really going to go after Kellyanne in the spot. There's too much history there.
Yeah, and also like who this is what I said of what John A should have really calculated as well is who do you want angry, right? If they potentially come back. Jody gets it. Jody's like, yeah, I get it. It's a competition. It's a game show. Put me in. I'll compete and I'll push hard. And I'm not going to like, she might get a bit depressed and down that she's not, you know, she gets in her own feelings and stuff, but she doesn't like hold grudges and hate you for a game move, I don't think. Whereas Kellyanne, considering their history, considering their past, and considering what she literally said to camera in this episode, she goes, if Wes puts me in, I don't know how I'll handle that. And I was like, oh no. I was like counting down to like explosions. And I think Wes probably saw that as well. Because even last week, he said he was the one talking Janae into keeping her as well and to not throwing her down. So Wes, he's a smart dude. He's a dickhead, but he's a smart dude.
Yeah. He's our dickhead though. We love him. We love the ginger beard. But yeah, he does make the right choice here. He throws obviously Benya down there with Jody, and they've got this, I guess, elimination, which is kind of new as well. I haven't seen it before, unless you can sort of, you know, jog my memory, where they have to gather oil.
They've had like similar stuff.
Yeah. But this was quite sadistic, you know, like you get oil, having to run oil up and then throw it into something, and then you have oil spilling all over the ramp with people having to run up it. It looked like something from Wipeout more than the challenge, because how the hell are you supposed to run up with this oil on the ramp?
I'm surprised they were able to get up it at all. Like, it's worse than
the ropes
oil
help.
is like, it's literally, well, I mean, oil is literally a lubricant. Like, it's meant to make stuff slippery. That is what it's designed for. And to have, to put that in I think it was a good challenge. I wanted to see, like, what do you reckon? The challenge is never great in expressing not only to the viewer, but from what we've heard to the challengers themselves, what the rules are. I felt like watching it going, this is an easy one to, like, hack,
Game.
like to gamify. You just,
You just keep
I
one
was
person
like,
at the
well,
bottom, the other
yeah,
person kind of leans down and grabs the buckets and push it up. I don't know. Like it seems like there could
well, I
be
was
because
like,
some of them had different
just do it on the
variations.
side. Do it on the side. Like reach up,
Oh no, I don't
walk
think
along.
I don't know. I don't think no, I don't think you could have done that. Like you had to. I'm pretty sure the rules was you have to go up the ramp. You can't just
Well,
like
if
lift
one,
something on the
well,
side.
they had at one point Rodrigo was staying at the top, and Naya was doing the running to get the thing. Like there seemed to be a lot of fluidity in who stays where and can do what and that sort of thing. So I was like, just like
But I'm
unless
pretty
they
sure
tell
the
you,
like the whole no, I'm pretty sure the rule was you have to go up the ramp or you have to pass it up the ramp. You can't just lift it on the side. But I had that same thought. I was like, oh man, it would have been so much easier if somebody just handed it up
yeah,
from the
like,
side. But that would defeat the whole purpose, right, of the challenge.
and also like the big thing for me, like as soon as I saw the ramp, I thought you walk with the bucket to the outside, right?
If
Like
it
the,
spills on the side.
it spills on the side, or at least on
Mm.
the on the outside edge as much as possible. They were
Have you
carrying it dead
ever
smack in the
lifted?
middle.
Have you ever lifted weights like that, holding it up on the side like that? Do you know how much
Oh
hurt
yeah,
that
yeah.
does to your shoulder?
I
It's not
know, I
as
know, I
easy as
know.
you'd think, you know?
What do you think about the strategy of, because we saw it play out? It was really funny where the editing did a good job. It was a slight gap, but on one scene, Sarah's going to Jody, you can't put as much in there. You got to take some out. And then it played out, and then Kiki and Darrell get their confessional. He's like, "You got to feel that motherfucker. Get like less strips." I was like, really good editing. One person
Yeah.
saying, "Take some out. You're spilling it. It's too much." And then he's like, "No, fill it more. Like get it up there." So I found that a really funny like little edit, which is good.
Yeah. No, they're so good at doing that in any case. But overall, we do end up without any surprises. I think to myself, I always thought Jody and Benya was going to pull this out. Rodrigo, there was an ongoing storyline throughout this episode that he hurt himself. Probably didn't do too well even on here. And when they were spilling oil all over the place, it was really hard for both Naya and also for Rodrigo to get up there. So seeing them lose, I wasn't too surprised. It was a little bit anticlimactic for me seeing them go out, but I feel like we've got one Argentinian team now in the race, and maybe Benya escapes one round because people could look at him as a number that they can now scoop up to go after other targets within the game, which might be the UK team at this stage. But my hope isn't too high for both Benya and Jody in the game. It feels like we might have to go through a couple of obvious rounds here with both Benya and Jody and maybe Tristan and Kellyanne before the game gets a bit more interesting moving forward.
Yeah, they'll if there's a more likely target or something like the whole, not me first. If we can take them out, then you take them out, and then we can go at each other. I think is the approach a lot of them are taking. Can I just say, with the challenge, the biggest disappointment for me for not the challenge, the elimination. As much as I love that oil up and down, I think the biggest disappointment for me would have been if Nelly T could have done it instead of Rodrigo. He would have been like if we thought last week was funny,
He would have
imagine
run
getting
up there.
Nelly T. Yeah, but he probably would have done the thing where like you're running on the spot and just like on the oil, and then he'd like face plan and slide down again and maybe try to run up again and just try to outpace it. Like I think Rodrigo, when he was taking his big crashes, this is what I thought. I was like, every time he fell down the oil and the people in the stands were like, oh, and they were cringing. And I was like, oh, that sucks. So, like it looked like brutal, especially knowing his injury, and it was worse every time he fell. And I just imagine, I was like, if that was not him and that was Nelly, I would have been laughing my ass off, and it would have been the funniest thing ever. He'd have I'm sure his braids would have been covered in sand and oil, and he'd have sand. He would have played it up perfectly, and he'd be the best character for it. But yeah, sorry, I sidetracked there. But I remember thinking that watching, going, this would have
I'm
been
just gonna
perfect
say
for like the
Nelly that
goofiness.
we saw. Nelly that we saw last week, maybe, but Nelly that we know can perform in eliminations because he has won a lot of those suckers. Maybe wouldn't have done it so badly on it. Let's put a little bit of respect on his name. It just seemed like whatever happened last week was like water to his flame. He just couldn't figure it out there.
I think regardless of how he did it, because they're falling all the time, right? I think if it was Nelson, I think the edit would have made it look that way. they
All
would have
right, and the
played the
music would
different
have been
music.
real funny.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Either funnier or a little more of the falls. They would have done like a montage where it's like fall, 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 like boom, boom, boom. And then everyone upstairs is going, you know, they would have just played. He might have done a very good job, but I think having a ramp with oil, I think they were setting it up like, let's make something where we could have stacks and have slips and have fun, and it's going to be a really good visual spectacle. But when one team was a little bit more dominant and one team had an injury, it ended up being like, it was still a great challenge. It was just could have been played up more for laughs, and they went serious, I think. Maybe if it
That's
was
why we
MTV
don't.
show versus World Champs, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, I think that's why they keep bringing Nelly back, is for the shits and giggles, you know,
Yeah.
and having it
You
out there.
need
If you
it.
don't have him, or you don't have Kyle out there, you don't have somebody that brings a little bit of that comedic value to the show. And I don't really see anybody out there at the moment that is going to bring that for us for the rest of the season. I actually feel like this is going to be a season that is going to have a very serious tone to it, because all these players are such big competitors and they all want to win the first World Championship season. But Kahuna, that's it here for this week. I think we've touched on all of the main points for episode 4. If you got to this part of the podcast, if you're watching it on YouTube, please consider subscribing, hitting the like button, putting on the notification bell so you can be notified whenever we bring out one of these podcast episodes. Also, look out for the interview. If you have watched the Challenge Australia that I did with Connor, that should hopefully be out at some stage within the next 7 days. And hopefully, you know, the more people who subscribe to the channel, hopefully we can bring some of these Challenge World Championship contestants onto the podcast as well. I'd love to talk to them to find out a little bit more of the behind the scenes, because there's always so much happening that we don't know about as fans. Kahuna, any final thoughts from your end?
Great episode. Loving the season. Loving all the characters. Loving that Briney's back. Bring back Briney. More Briney all the time for me. But no, great episode. Thanks again, Chris. Great breakdown. I loved it. Fun times.
Yeah, same here. Love it. So see you guys next time. Bye.